Welcome to the From Code to C-Suite podcast.
The devil is in the detail, is in how do you execute day in, day out. In startup, whatever is your role in the startup, it's rather a boulder, right, on an uphill. The second you stop pushing, you're just going to be crushed, right? It will roll back on you and you're done. Look, so funnily enough, for me, one of the best day was the day we got our first term sheet. I'm a bit more on the hire slow, but fire fast. I do think that actually AI will play a big role in further enablement for SME to really take all the space that they should say.
Founders love ideas, but ideas alone don't win. Karim shows you what does. Daily execution, an owner's mindset, remote teams that actually deliver, funding the fuel for real growth. If you're running an SME or building one, this is the ultimate playbook. Let's get into the conversation.
There is never a right moment, but there's also never a wrong moment. A lot of people try to tell me, but when was the right moment?
Yeah.
I don't think there was ever a right moment. Because it's always risky, like we were saying earlier. Like there was so much risk coming with having your own startup.
Karim, good morning and welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Good morning. Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Well, look, super happy to have you on board on the podcast. Just as a bit of an introduction, I know you've been in the region for quite a while now, but can you please give the guests who'll be watching today a bit of an overview of your background and what you are working on now?
Sure. Indeed. I've been here actually for a bit more than 12 years now.
Nice.
So right now, really, what we're focusing on is solving the gap, which the funding gap, which SME are facing in most developing economies. Mm-hmm. So if you look in general at developed economies, SME represent maybe 40 to 60% of the GDP, and they have access to 20 to 40% of the funding of the lending from banks. In developing economies in the GCC and in Africa, these numbers are very different. While the SME generate roughly the same percentage of the GDP, maybe a little bit less, but they have access to a much smaller portion of the lending from banks. Mm-hmm. And this is not because they don't need the funding. This is because the banks, they are underbanked. So the banks are not yet maybe incentivized enough or don't have the right setup or have other opportunities and are serving more and are serving less the SMEs and much more the bigger corporate and the huge corporate. And so this is the funding, this is the gap that we're tackling, which is a pretty big opportunity. And most importantly, also it allows kind of a lot of economies, most economies need these SMEs to be able to really grow, right? You need depth in the economy. You cannot only rely on a few big corporate. You have to have a lot of depth. You have to have a lot of capillarity in your ecosystem. And this is where the SMEs play a critical role. Mm-hmm. But for these SME to be able to flourish and to grow, they need access to funding. And this is really where the problems that we're solving.
Nice. How did you originally discover that problem? Is it something in previous businesses that you faced yourself where getting finance was difficult, or how did you kind of figure that out in the first place?
Yeah. So actually, it's a combination of a few things. So in one of the company where I was before, which is called Fetcher, and then I will come back to this at some point. Right?
Yeah.
We were a startup, and then eventually we grow to become much bigger. But we faced a lot of problem even in opening initially the bank account. And then even though we raised a significant amount of money, we actually never got access to funding. To funding from banks, to lending from banks. So this was one of the factor. The other one is I was in BNPL. So prior to my current role, I was in BNPL. So buy now, pay later, which is consumer lending. And some consumer actually have a small business and they would actually take a personal loan in order to fund their business, right? So this was another sign that, hey, even for some individual, it was almost easier for them to get their own funding for themselves to finance their business. And prior to this, I was at Citibank also. So for me, lending has been a big part of my experience in the past. And I've been in the region again, for a while. So this is how we came up with this opportunity, and identifying this gap.
Nice. It's quite interesting actually, isn't it? Because I think from afar, anybody that's thinking about opening up a business or moving their life to the Middle East, the GCC in particular, people think that it's so fast forward. And I think in so many ways it is. But like you said, setting up a bank account, sometimes getting finance is incredibly difficult here. Even personal struggles, right? Trying to get a business bank account set when we first arrived was really, really difficult. So yeah, I can completely understand that. When I guess now is like a bird's eye view of the business. What does it look like now? How long have you been going for at Flow 48? What does the team size look like? What kind of is the overview of the business right now?
Yeah, so we're a bit less than 40 people right now.
Nice.
We started the business in 2021 initially, so we started working on it mid 2021. Got our first term sheet in December 2021.
Nice.
So this is a bit more than 3 years now. We have a team in South Africa. We have a team in Moldova, and the rest of us are spread across a few different places.
Nice. What does the teams look like? And like, obviously you mentioned headcount there, but what roles are in different regions?
Yeah. So in Moldova, it's mostly the technical and product and data science team.
Nice.
It's our tech hub in a sense. In South Africa, we have a lot of the finance, risk, underwriting. So the operational part of things are mostly in South Africa. Nice. Where we have also a significant market where we operate also.
Nice.
Along with the GCC.
I'd not seen many businesses actually that open up tech hubs in Moldova. What's it like for tech talent there?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great people, very good talent, and also our CTO has very deep root in Moldova. So for us, it was a plus. Yeah.
So when you first started the business, obviously you're a co-founder, right? What was the team around you when you very first started?
I mean, literally day one, it was my co-founder Idris and myself.
Yeah.
And then we had a junior resource who was with us, someone that I know for the last 20 years. And this person is still with us. He grew quite a lot since then.
Wow.
And then, right, so we went from 2 to 3 to 4. Then eventually, right, so, went up steadily. And now we're a bit less than 40. I think one thing that we really have to keep in mind, having been in the startup ecosystem for a while, is what we really try to do is not to hire too quickly, because you also want to be mindful about your burn rate. You don't want to hire too quickly and then to have to do some reorg at some point, because it's not good for the business. It's also not good for the people.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're trying to grow at a steady and healthy pace in terms of hiring. And it's always it's always a challenge, because if you're too late to hire, then the current team will scramble under the pressure. And if you hire too early, then your burn rate is just so high before the revenue follow, right? So it's always you have to always manage the balance between hiring too early and hiring too late.
Makes sense. With Flow 48 then, so I've seen a lot about you guys recently, especially across LinkedIn, social media platforms, and it seems like you're doing extremely well. You've had funding. How is that going? What's the success stories you've had so far?
Yeah, so look, we managed to raise, so initially we raised our pre-seed, so we already raised 3 rounds. We raised our pre-seed, we raised our seed, and more recently we did our Series A. Most of our investors are European VCs like nice. Briga, Speed Invest. We're also backed by Endeavor. We have Daphne, and we have a few angel investors who have very deep experience in the field. We also have 212 Capital.
Nice.
So it's been a challenging but super rewarding journey.
Yeah.
And fundraising is always one of the challenges that you face in most startups which rely on VC funding.
100%. I think that's like make or break, right? So most businesses, if they can't get the investment or the amount of investment they need, then that's it. That's kind of game over, isn't it?
100%.
Who normally deals with those types of relationships in your business? Is that something that you've been able to do previously and you've got connections in that space, or?
This is Idris, my co-founder. He's very good at this, and he fully lead the fundraising part of the business.
Nice.
Him and our COO, Mario.
Wicked. And then moving forward, right, obviously you've got good rounds of investment recently. Where do you see the business in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, right? Because we definitely want, again, the opportunity in most geography is already very big by itself, just to bridge the gap for SME lending. For example, if you look at Saudi 2030, there is a lot of focus on SMEs, giving them more opportunities, increasing the share of SMEs part of the business. So if we think at our business, we want to grow further geographically, further expand in the GCC and in Africa, kind of become the de facto lender for SME, become really the go-to company whenever any SME needs access to funding, and then eventually start to adding more product to our portfolio.
Yeah.
So 5-10 years, I think, is a bit of a very long view for a startup. I would focus first on the next 2, and then the next, and then the following 2. So it's really concentrating, kind of, mastering what we're doing for the next year, and then starting to increase new country and after new countries.
Nice. What would you say, like, your for me, I always have like a dream client list, right? So people that I want to work with, or specific, our target audience as such. What you've mentioned SME there, right? But is there any specific SMEs, like in terms of size, how much they're looking to lend, to be financed, or even SMEs in a specific industry? Is there anything that's like the perfect sweet spot for you?
Yes and no. The nice thing is that we're industry agnostic. So we built all the necessary algorithm in order to be able to assess an SME based on a few documents, like bank statement.
Yeah.
And now, like, obviously, like most business, you want to build a relation with your client and eventually grow with them. Right? So these SME, when they start pretty small, and let's say, they take a given amount from us, 10,000, right? The idea is that, when they grow, their funding requirement will grow. And because we'll have established a history with them, then there is already much more trust in between us, and we can grow with them until eventually they will move to a bank.
Yeah,
right?
Nice.
So these are the kind of SMEs which we would also love to work with, but we're also a bit industry agnostic, and we're SME almost agnostic.
Nice.
Which makes our target market pretty big.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah. Nice. Okay. All right. Awesome. So look, previous to Flow 48, let's talk about other businesses you've worked at and previous experience that you've got, right? So you have, off memory, you've worked at places like Uber, Fetcher, stuff like that. Can you tell us a bit more about your background before you started the current business?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to go backward chronologically. Right. So just before this, I was in a family office. I was handling the finance vertical of everything related to was the finance vertical. So basically, it consisted of BNPL, buy now pay later for consumer, mostly in Lebanon, regulated by the Central Bank of Lebanon, and then also another company for this family office, which was a pure fintech play, where we built a SaaS platform which was sold for financial institutions and banks who wanted themselves to operate into the field of BNPL. Eventually, this company was acquired. Prior to this, I was at Fetcher. So this is where actually I met my current co-founder Idris. He is the founder of Fetcher. I joined, so I was at Fetcher. And before Fetcher, I was the GM of Uber in Saudi Arabia.
Nice.
So I launched Uber in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, wow, really?
This was back in 2014. Prior to Uber, I was in a very different industry. I was in banking. I was at Citibank, where I joined Citibank in New York, then moved with them to Indonesia, Jakarta, before moving also with them to the region. And in a previous life, I was a consultant for Booz Allen and for Delta Partners, so management and strategy consulting.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Just dissecting those previous roles a little bit more, right? So Fetcher, they're a pretty big brand out here, right? It's a huge company, a unicorn, I guess, in the space. Like, what was when did you join that business, and what was your growth like there?
I joined Fetcher super early, so it was pre-Series A.
Okay.
One of the first 4 or 5 guys there.
Wow.
Eventually, until we became maybe several thousand people.
Wow.
I was chief product officer, so handling the product part of things, and I was also handling what is called the C2C part of the business, so the consumer to consumer part of the business. I was handling the P&L of this business. Super interesting business. I joined there just after being at Uber, right? So it's a B2C. It has both arms, right? A B2B kind of business and a B2C part of.
What year was Uber? What time frame was that you joined
2014.
there? 2014.
Yeah, in 2014. And then 2015, I was at Fetcher.
Nice.
For a few years. Uber. My experience at Uber was super interesting because this is where you realize like the product of Uber really didn't need selling. Like it was always like demand was always there, right? The key was to be able to get enough driver on the platform to be able to deliver, right? To have enough driver to cater for the demand. And this was my first experience in the B2C part of the business. And for such a successful business, I mean, back then in 2014, it was really not known, right? It was kind of just another taxi company. Like this is how it, I mean, when I left Citi to join Uber, it was like, so what, you're leaving a bank to join a taxi? It was not, it was really not known here. But then the moment it launched, it was a success story. Everybody wanted to use Uber. And it was very interesting for me to understand how this kind of product, which looks super easy from a user perspective, you click on a button. Actually, there is so much more happening on the back end. And you're solving such a big problem. It was a great experience for me, specifically coming from a corporate like Citi to join Uber, which eventually I took this experience for at Fetcher and for the rest of my career.
It's crazy actually, isn't it? Because thinking of Uber, I was just thinking when you're telling me this story, I was thinking of like how disruptive it was, even in UK, in London, right? So everybody was black cabs, hailing taxis and all this sort of stuff. And I remember when Uber first came in, nobody really wanted to use it because it was like, it's not really like, know, what we're used to. And now it just completely took over the whole market.
Look, in Saudi, it picked up directly. But I mean, I know in London, right? So we used to understand what is happening in other city. It picked up super quickly. But yeah, it's a great example of something which really disrupted the market. Right. And I mean, there are so many people who know so much about it. So many case study on it. Amazing story. And for me personally, it was such a great experience.
Where do you think you gained actually the most, to where you are today, where do you think you gained most experience out of all the roles that you've had so far? Where would you say?
Yeah, I gained a lot of know-how. Like each one was very different. I have a bit of a maybe not very traditional background. So I'm originally an engineer with a master's in artificial intelligence, but I'm talking 20 years ago, right? So AI was not what it is today. There were much less use cases. So this is, if you want, a bit more my scientific background. And then as a consultant, I learned a lot about strategy, about thinking, about organization, about like coming up with a strategy, go to market, and this kind of stuff, but much less on execution. At Citibank, it was much more on the financial part of things, right? Really, how does the money flow? What is the role of a bank in an ecosystem? How do company use bank? And then after this is where I joined Uber, and this is definitely the point where I realized that this is where I understood what is a disruptive product, like literally changing the game. Suddenly everybody wanted to use Uber, and we never had a problem of marketing. Obviously, we're doing marketing, but the problem was really getting enough driver, again, right, to be able to cater for this demand. So my experience, very different kind of experience in all these places. At Fetcher, it was my first experience as pure product, and my background was as an engineer with artificial intelligence background was super useful, but it was my pure experience as product and understanding really how, I mean, it's very easy to use Uber, but when you think about all the processes and the work that has to be done to build this app and to build everything around it, this is where it becomes very, very interesting for me. And this is something which kind of, I really opened my eyes on this at Fetcher.
Nice. So you kind of mentioned it briefly there, right? So this is going to be one of my next questions. Did you come from a computer science background at university? Did you have an education in tech? You mentioned AI there, right? Which I can imagine was so different back 20 years ago. What did it even look like, and what was your degree?
Yeah, so different. So I was an engineer, electrical engineer, and then I did directly my master's in artificial intelligence. But back then there was just a few hedge funds around the world who were hiring people in AI, and to be able to get there, you need to have a very strong financial background. There was like, when I first did in AI, like people were like, what is this? Like, we'll never be using it. Right. And things obviously evolved so much since then. But like you said, also, what I learned back then is now completely obsolete. If I wouldn't have, kind of really kept up with all the new, all the development and what's happening, my knowledge would have been completely useless. But again, the speed of change of AI is just insane. So I don't have a background specifically in computer science, but between my engineering and my AI background, I kind of played a little bit with the field. But my first pure experience to tech is really at Uber. When I left Citibank and I joined Uber, this was really where, again, you see how this kind of tech play is such a different place than anything else.
Yeah. When you was just on the AI stuff, when you was back studying it, did you at that point in time realize how big AI would be now? Like if you could fast forward 20 years, did you feel like it would be in the position it is? Was that predicted or?
No, I wish I could say yes. I wish I could say yes. I mean, obviously, there were a lot of use cases starting to be understood. There was a lot of finance was a very, very big thing. People were dreaming and continue like, can I predict the next big thing and all of this? There was a lot of work done on image processing, and so there were a lot of field being pushed, but not to the extent at which it is right now. Like literally right now, it's in every little thing that you do on daily basis.
Everything,
everything, right? And I mean, I wish I were, I could say yes, but no, it was going to be big. But I think the extent and specifically the speed, I think it's more the speed at which things evolved rather than the extent that it covers.
Yeah. Well, even in the last few years, right? Even 10 years ago, it was just kind of staying at the same level. Then all of a sudden, it's just gone shoof.
Yeah. Exactly right. It's already a very high speed, and it's exponentially accelerating. So it'll be interesting to see where we'll end up in 1, 2, 3, 5 years. And
interesting, and also a little bit scary.
Yes.
You mentioned a little bit then. So just remind me, the first role in your industry, the first role you had in the industry. How did you land that post university?
Post university, I joined a consulting firm, a company called Booz Allen Hamilton, one of the big strategy and management consulting firm. I was basically, so it's, I don't know if you're familiar a little bit with consulting, but a lot of engineers eventually go to consulting. It's literally a place where I think, if you have a good background and you're willing to do the work, you can do pretty well, you can grow. The opportunity is amazing because you really get exposure to very different industries, specifically when you're still a junior resources, because then you get put on different projects from different industries. And for me, it was amazing, right? So I worked into aviation, I worked into like for electricity company, I worked for telco company, so I was a telco engineer. I also worked for like so many different kind of vertical and covering different part of their business, whether it was procurement, finance, HR, strategy. But yeah, I mean, it was just, how I landed, I think it was just, a bit of luck, a bit of work to get to the interview.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. It's good though, isn't it, I guess? Because if you are a consultant, right, you're working all these different things, as you mentioned, so you get such a good broad like round of experience in different things. And I guess that gives you the confidence to try new things in the future, right?
100%. The experience that I got at my first job was amazing because it gives you the foundation for everything else I did in terms of structure and capability to really problem solve. I think one thing that you really gain when you're a consultant, you know how to solve problems, which is so handy.
What eventually made you want to be an entrepreneur? Is that something you always kind of had in your mind to do when you got experience, or did it just kind of fall on a plate? How did that happen?
Yeah, no, definitely something I always wanted.
Yeah.
So, from one side, my dad always had his own company. He was in textile, something very different. But so I grew up with, kind of seeing my dad owning his own company. But even more, right? So, when I, while growing up and while working, I'm like, I really want to give it a shot one time. I want to have my own company. I want to be a founder. For me, there was a huge appeal to it. Now, I don't think there is really at some point, at least not for me, the right moment, right? It's very risky. It's 99% of the case, it's a very risky step to take, right? To leave the stability of a stable job and then to jump into the startup world. But if kind of, some people, for me, like I just knew I have to do it at some point. So again, when this opportunity for me was so obvious, there is really a clear gap. So I'm like, okay, if we have to do it, let's do it at some point. So it was then. And then with Idris, we're able to raise the fund. So this was the first super important kind of stepping stone to be able to grow from there.
Yeah, makes sense. You're right. I feel like you've got to have a pretty big risk appetite, haven't you, to be an entrepreneur throughout that process?
Yeah, it's a big risk appetite. I think, again, like you get so much out of it in terms of professional kind of, like fulfillment, but obviously it comes with a huge risk. When you also have a family and kids, definitely there is a risk to it. But, yeah.
Makes sense. Obviously, there's a lot of risk to that. So I guess if we look back at your career so far, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced?
So one of them was probably the shift from banking, which is a corporate place, Citibank, one of the biggest banks in the world, to running Uber and to launching and running Uber in Saudi Arabia. This was a significant shift in everything, right? From the way things operate on day-to-day basis, the speed of delivery, the speed of execution, the resources that you have available. This was definitely a big but very rewarding challenge, because it's really, okay, like, you really learn how to get things done. And definitely also kind of my first job, right? Leaving engineering and to jump into consulting, where it's a lot about kind of organizing things and, like kind of putting things on slides, which is the bread and butter for every consultant. While for me, it was still a relatively new thing, right? So just basic stuff, but they do cause a challenge at the beginning. And then it's just about, in general, I think in startup right now at Flow, really the toughest thing to do though is execution. It's very easy to have a good idea. It's very easy to put things on, to put a plan, to say, okay, this is what we want to do, to strategize and everything. I mean, it's relatively easy. Really, the devil is in the detail, is in how do you execute day in, day out. It's not about executing one day and then getting a rest. It's about executing every single day. So this is, I think this is the main challenge that most people, and definitely most founder in startup face.
That's what everyone, I think, says, isn't it? Like all the business books or mentors that I follow online and stuff, they say you just need to show up every single day, even if things don't work out, or sometimes go in a straight line all the time. That's the most important thing. And it's the compound effect of that happening, I guess.
There is a nice say in his books, Horowitz says, as a founder, I used to sleep like a baby. Wake up every 2 hours crying, right? So I
feel that actually.
And this is one of the, kind of one of the biggest name in the industry.
Yeah.
And so he says a little bit how like a founder's life is not an easy life.
It is very challenging. Do you feel like there's more pressure now? Obviously, you mentioned a really big challenge was going from Citibank, a huge global bank, into Uber, which was big difference in types of work. Do you feel like there's more pressure there, or more pressure now that being a founder of a business, it's kind of like, wow, everything's on my shoulders sort of thing?
So there is definitely, right now, the challenge is really, really huge. I think I'm very lucky also to have a co-founder like Idris, because then you can share the load, and right. So if it happens that one day you're kind of not really there, there is someone else to kind of pull you up. But I mean, in a startup, the thing is, I like this analogy, but when you're in a corporate place, right, there is a train kind of moving. Whether you're in the train or not in the train is going to continue moving. In startup, whatever is your role in the startup, it's rather a boulder, right, on an uphill. The second you stop pushing, you're just going to be crushed, right? It will roll back on you and you're done.
Yeah.
Like there is no movement if you don't push for it. Like so, every single person has a role to play. Every single decision is important, and so the challenge is just two very different. And yourself, you have your own company, so you understand. You also live this difference of just mental state and readiness to do things every day.
100%, I agree. One thing that you mentioned there with like the ball, I always I read something before that says never disrespect momentum. So if you catch momentum, like don't ever take a step back. You need to keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Very
And
true.
I've actually made that mistake myself. I've kind of had a good few months periods and I think, oh God, you know what? I kind of need a little bit of a rest now because it's been super tough. And then all of a sudden, one step back can turn into such a big, bad thing for the business.
Yeah, no, you can't. I mean, I think, when beside a certain size, below a certain size, you just can't catch a break. Like it's really because there is not enough momentum that you can rely on, right? But once you have this momentum, yes, really
feels good as well,
yes,
right?
For sure.
Nice. What would you say kind of pivotal moment was, especially for Flow 48? What was the pivotal moment when you realized you was onto something good? And you know what, this is working. We're really getting good traction here.
Look, so funnily enough, for me, one of the best day was the day we got our first term sheet. I mean, in the big scheme of things, people are going to say, yeah, but it's nothing. A first term sheet, right, for a pre-seed round. This really doesn't get you anywhere. But for me on that day, I was like so happy because, coming back to the point where I really wanted to be an entrepreneur, like this is already an amazing day for me.
It feels real though, right? The first bit feels real. I'm doing it. It's
exactly.
Working.
It feels real. And, you manage to convince VCs that, hey, this is real. The idea is here. The idea is good. The opportunity is there. And with the right people to execute. But to be honest, like really, every day, during the same day, sometimes you're like, this is it. We're on top of it. Things are going to go well. And then maybe 2 hours later, you're like, oh my God, we have so many more problems to solve. So I don't think I really don't think that at some point, for more than a few days in a row, I'm like, okay, that's it. Like you said, right? I know that there are always more challenges, and I think we're not yet at a point where we have enough momentum, or we're at a place where we say, okay, that's it, we cracked it. I think we're having more wins and losses every single day in a sense, and I think this is we're on the right path to get there, but it's a long road which we know will be bumpy. We know we will have to to cross quite a lot of hurdles, but I think we have a very strong team and we're ready to do it.
Nice. I saw like a meme the other day actually online, and it was the day in the life of an entrepreneur's brain. And it was like, you can wake up super excited. Everything feels like everything you touch will turn to gold. That might happen for the first few hours. Then all of a sudden it's a car crash and you think, oh my God, is it going to work? How long are we going to last? Like it's a really big up and down roller coaster, isn't it?
100%. It's this is literally every day almost.
One of the biggest things I think of building a successful business is the people that you have inside the company. What's your kind of I don't know what the best way to describe it is. What's the advice you would have on building a successful team, or lessons learned over building teams, and whether it's locally, geographically? What advice would you give on building good teams?
Yeah, so look, in our case, we went with a pretty remote structure, and I think if you have the right, if you hire the right people, I think it can work pretty well. In our case, it is working pretty well. If you hire people who are autonomous, who are owner, who are accountable for what they do, then I think a remote setup works well. And in general, I really think that to be able to scale a business and to have a successful startup, you need to hire people who are accountable, who wants to actually, who are acting like business owner for their own project. I think this is so important, because nobody have enough time, specifically in this smaller setup, to really handhold someone to tell him, hey, this is what has to be happen next, this is what happens to happen next, right? You can give some kind of quick overview of what has to happen, but then the people have to be able to do it themselves. So I think in terms of hiring, so some people say hire fast, fire fast. I'm a bit more on the hire slow, but fire fast. Hire slow because I think, you get to know the people. And I think it's a bit unfair to hire quickly because some people, are already in a place where they are good. So if you hire them quickly and you do the mistake of hiring, it would be a bit unfair to fire them fast later. So I'm a bit more of the mentality of, hey, we hire slowly. So we try to focus on getting the right people. So we take a bit more time to do this. But obviously, if it's not the right fit, then sometimes you have to take a tougher decision. But I think if you do the right due diligence, at least you did your best on both sides of the equation, because there is also on the candidate side, which is very important, to be truthful about their capabilities. So I think you grow your team steadily, healthily. I think in our case, this has been the way we did it, and we're pretty happy about it so far because we have a very glued team together, even though we have a very remote setup.
Nice. I think that's really good advice, because a lot of businesses, especially from my experience, maybe, for example, they've just had a round of investment, right? So it's almost maybe an ego thing to a certain extent, but it's like head count. The more people we have, it looks like our business is doing extremely well, right? So let's hire extremely quick. And then that can obviously create hurdles in the business. Culture fit can be really impactful if everyone is not aligned in the same mission, in the same journey and stuff like that. So I completely understand. When it comes to remote, like a lot of people are massive advocates of remote, but also find it quite hard to manage everybody, especially maybe if you're not seeing that person ever or in person very frequently. Have you got any advice of how you can best make sure that everyone's performing, everyone's got a good culture when you are building a remote team?
Yeah. So, I mean, the usual suspect are, you have the performance review, and you have this kind of more, I don't want to call them traditional, but well-known tools to make sure that at least people's performance is tracked. But I think it's also about involvement and making sure that even if someone is not interacting physically with other people on daily basis, they feel part of a team. Because I think the moment you're part of a team, you integrate better, and you're happy to deliver. And then if you're having issues, other people will know it quicker. They will be able to support you. Or if on the opposite, kind of, you're really not a good fit, there is also other people who say, who can raise a flag pretty quickly. So I think that the remote work is, and the upside of remote work, to be honest, is that you can access to almost any talent you want. Now, okay, time zone on the side, right? But you can access to any talent you want anywhere in the world. So this suddenly opens opportunities for literally all kind of talent. So there is a lot of upside to it. Obviously, there are also a lot of downside, and there are a lot of big companies right now going completely to work from office versus some of them are still on a hybrid. I don't think there is a win strategy for everybody. I think every company have to understand their own DNA and understand what is the right setup for them, what kind of culture is there, what kind of ownership, and decide which culture works best. But if someone wants to go through the remote work path, again, for me, there are quite a few upside which enables both companies and individual to benefit something which were not really available until
Makes sense.
Pre.
What do you normally do? Do you normally stick to a specific time zone and have maybe a stand up every couple of days, or how does it normally work when you're trying to get everyone on the same working cycle?
So first we have like weekly meetings. So every week everybody meet, but also we have a lot of every team meet internally. And again, so we're remote, but we have our main hub is Moldova and South Africa, right? So we don't have people literally spread all over the place. And in terms of time zone, we're very focused in terms of time zone, right? So I think between the biggest gap is like 4 hours or 3 hours. So still, when people are working, they're working at the same on the same hours. Every team is very well glued internally. Plus, we have this company weekly call where everybody gets to understand really what's happening all across the company. So to create this sense of belonging, and where people who are, I don't know, maybe in finance will understand what's happening in tech and vice versa, right? So it's really, and I think people really love this kind of exposure, which brings people together, even though they are remote.
100%. No, it's good to keep having the meetings weekly, I think. What lessons have you learned in leadership along the way so far? Like, what lessons would you give to anybody else that's wanting to build a team, a remote team, or even a product that's in the similar space to you?
So I think one misconception which might exist sometimes in the professional world is leadership versus, let's say, organization seniority, right? So if I have a team of 5 people, I'm the senior to 5 people, and I tell person A, B, and C to do a few different things, I will do it. Is this really? This is, I think we can all agree that this is not really leadership. But leadership is really how do you make sure that people are following you, or kind of believe in what you're doing, believe in when you have something to say, when you have ideas to share, when that you can also understand what are other people telling you, analyze it. When when you're steering the company or a project somewhere, they have enough trust in your capabilities and in how you came up to this idea, so they believe, okay, this is the right place, this is the right place to go. Because not everybody will always agree that this is the right place to go, but if they trust that they trust you, and they trust that you did the right due diligence, and based on your experience, that this is the best place to go right now, because you need people to be rowing in the same direction at some point, right? So there is a moment where you have to think, okay, what do we want to do? But then at some point you also have to decide, okay, this is what we have to do, even if you have to change it at some point later, but you have to decide where do you want to go. And you need everybody to be rowing in the same place, right? To be pushing to go to this place that you agree to go. And this is where you need people to trust you, to trust your leadership, that, okay, for now, this is the right place to go. It might be that in a week, in a month, or in a day, you might have to change the goal for different reason. Yeah. But at least when people are pushing with conviction, and they trust your leadership, they trust that, hey, this is the place to go right now, so let's all row towards there.
Speaking to different business owners and I guess CEOs, business owners, or anyone in leadership, they often say like how important either a mission statement or vision statement is, right? So there's like that clear statement goal that everybody believes and everyone's pushing towards. Do you have anything like that at Flow 48?
Yeah, we have a vision statement and both a vision and a mission statement.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have on top of mind now, but we do have them.
That's good. Fair enough. That's fine. Okay, so if we're looking at the industry in general, what are the biggest shifts that you've seen yourself? I guess when we're talking industry now, we're talking maybe fintech, we're maybe talking B2B, we're talking financing. Like, what are the biggest shifts that you've seen change over the last 5 to 10 years in this space?
Yeah, I mean, the easy one is AI.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's obvious. We talked about it a little bit earlier in this session. And I don't think we can talk about it enough, right? Everybody's talking about it. There is a huge shift, but there are also other shifts. So let's assume we know that this is probably one of the biggest one, if not the biggest one. Fintech also by itself, right? So when you think about SMEs, so we're targeting one of the gaps of SMEs, right, which is funding. But there are also a lot of other plays happening in fintech. If you think about blockchain, about cryptocurrency, about all these payment, about globalization. So these people who are also working on remote basis. So there are a lot of different things which needs to happen also in. Because crypto, in a sense, is part of maybe the fintech umbrella, right? So there are a lot of things also happening in fintech, focusing on SME, but not only focusing on SME, focusing also on the payments, the cryptocurrency. How will it be used? How big will it be? And there are also a lot of back and forth on this with the regulator, without the regulator. Is it decentralized? Is it centralized? So there are so many things, right? So there is also this huge cryptocurrency, blockchain vertical, which is changing also every day. And there are a lot of startups also focusing on kind of one specific niche of this vertical. And probably the third one is really the health tech part of things. For me, at least, biotech, health tech, I think is also very, very big. There's starting to be a lot. I mean, there is a lot of money being poured there to try to be able to leap forward in everything related to health tech and biotech.
Yeah, we're on the fintech stuff because I feel like the industry that we operate in, and being so heavily in fintech, a lot of businesses are actively moving to the GCC for a reason, right? Whether that's different rules around licenses, legislation, but also because to be surrounded by emerging markets, right? So a lot of fintech problems that are maybe payments or solving issues in India, in Africa, and like you guys, right? You're SMEs in emerging markets. Do you feel like you being based here is, I don't know what the best way to describe it is. Is it beneficial for you to be based here? Like, what are the bonuses of being based in the UAE or GCC is good for you?
Look, there are a lot of. So if you look at startups, there are a few different things which have to be in place to enable a successful startup ecosystem. One is the ecosystem itself. Are there other startups? Is there an ecosystem? And definitely there is an ecosystem in the region now, but also availability of funding, right? So there is quite a lot of funding in the GCC, and a lot of it is focusing on fintech, obviously also on AI. But if you look at the numbers, there is a significant scale up of funding available for startup in the region. And then you just have the market themselves, like you mentioned, right? So the GCC itself, Africa, which is pretty easy to serve from here. So I definitely think, I mean, again, for us, it was not a random decision. It was very thought of, to be here, because we do believe that all the enablers for a successful setup are available.
Nice. Okay. So we've kind of looked at the last 5 to 10 years of what's changed so far. What predictions, and we can include AI in this as well if you like, but what predictions do you have for the space you're in now for the next 5 to 10 years? Anything that will change drastically or?
Yeah, I think so. In our space specifically, I do think that actually AI will play a big role in further enablement for SME to really take all the space that they should say, right? Because one of the issue with SME, if you think, is scalability. If you think of a bank, if you want to give a loan of, let's say, 100,000, if we're talking in dollar versus a loan of $10 million, then if the cost is the same to issue one loan versus the other, you will always focus on the bigger one, right? Because then you will make it just makes more sense. But the more you can automate the processes of disbursing a loan of $100,000 or $10,000, then if the cost becomes so marginal that you can actually even start to disperse much smaller loan, then there will be so much more opportunities for all sizes of SMEs to be able to grow. And one of the enablers for this automation is AI, right? So I think AI will play and this is a specific example for our case, but I think this case is going to be in a similar way addressable into so many different sub-vertical of the fintech space.
Yeah. When you say obviously the automation side of things is going to really enhance it, do you feel like a lot of more SMEs or scale-ups, etc., they'll be able to leverage AI instead of having to pay pricey headcount, for example? They can stay relatively lean but still produce large amounts of output?
Yes, it should be. And I think the companies who will not be able to do this will have very tough time succeeding.
Yeah.
Right? Because just if you're competing with someone who's much more efficient than you, then you're bound to lose at some point. Some company will probably throw money at the problem, like hire more people to just be able to compete. But this is usually a very short term left solution. At some point, you need to be able to gain efficiency. You need to be able to be competitive, and definitely kind of using AI in the right way is key. And I think so many people right now are trying to figure out.
Yeah.
So many people are already using AI, but also they are figuring out, because they know that there are so many more opportunities. How do you use it best? Because you don't want to use AI just for the sake of using AI.
It's a buzzword, isn't it? I think people use it anyway, right?
Yes. For
Even
sure.
if they're not actually using it, they just kind of add
everybody
it on.
uses it. On paper, everybody uses AI.
Yeah.
In reality, I don't know what is the real percentage of people using AI.
Yeah.
And really, if you're using AI, is it helping you by 1% or by 90% like it should? So you can use AI, but it's not really helping you.
It's even in the school curriculum now here, right? They're putting it into school curriculum.
Yeah. No.
Which I think is kind of crazy, because there's not that many people that are well versed enough in AI to be able to teach it. Or if there are super clever people in AI, maybe they're making money off it, the back of it in business rather than being a teacher, right? So how do they also do that?
That's a very good question. So I have 2 kids who are at school, and they talk about this every now and then, and it's a very fair question, because it's a buzzword even in school. Who are the right teacher to teach this? But I think exposure to kids at a young age, even if by people who are not super strong in the field, is already good enough. And then, I think some kids will just be a bit more prone to learning it by themselves. There are so many availability out there are so many tools available out there to learn so much about AI. AI by itself is a tool which can help you learn more about it, right? And I think it's a bit of the role of going somewhere else.
For young children, especially, obviously you've got kids, right? Do you feel like, obviously it's a massive help in some ways, but also do you feel like it could be a hindrance? Because where we was at school and we had to learn things the old way, right? You had to learn it yourself and understand something. Kids at school now can just get a task, get a challenge, and then chuck it into AI on ChatGPT, right? So they're not actually learning it. Something else is telling them the answer.
Of course. And for me, that's a big question. And, I have my own answer to it, which is, I think it's going to be important for kids to build the brain and, the right setup in their brain to be able to have this critical thinking, which we built back then. But I think it would be a mistake for them if they don't use AI to do more, right? But where is the line? And I think this is where not a lot of people know where is the line. I definitely don't know where it is. I don't think nobody knows where is the line, right? Because you don't want to isolate them from AI, and then they would be like, okay, then they are really like kind of, they are working with a handicap. But you don't want them to write too much on it, and then they are not building their own critical thinking. So you have to find a balance between these.
So true. Okay, cool. So we've not got an awful lot of time left. So I just want to ask a few more questions around what advice do you have for aspiring tech founders?
Look, I think there is never a right moment, but there's also never a wrong moment. Someone who wants to do a startup, at some point they just have to do it, right? Because a lot of people try to tell me, but when was the right moment? Like, I don't think there was ever a right moment, because it's always risky, like we were saying earlier. Like, there was so much risk coming with having your own startup. So I would argue that the younger you are, you're a bit less risk averse. So I would argue that probably if you're a bit younger but have enough experience, so probably there is a right moment where kind of you think about experience, so you're accumulating enough experience and your risk profile is still good enough. After this, you get more experience, but then your risk appetite start to decrease. So it's probably, if you can, it's like a mountain, right? And if you can feel like the tip of the mountain, which probably lasts, I don't know, a couple of years maybe, this is probably the right moment. But again, there is no rewrite. At some point, just have to. If you have this itch, for anybody who has the itch of becoming an entrepreneur, they just have to do it at some point.
You got to give it a go.
Yeah, you have to give it a go. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you so much. I really enjoyed that the chat with you. I think you've offered some really great insights for a lot of different people there. So thank you. Is there anywhere that if people want to ask you questions, reach out, that would be a good point of contact for you at?
So first, thank you. I also enjoyed the chat. I'm not very present on social media, but I'm on LinkedIn. Yet. I should probably work on it and get back to you, but I'm on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.